Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. This is live stream number 1017. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and usually some random musings about the hobby as well. But we are certainly not engaging in any sort of rocket surgery, that's for sure. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you're not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live show, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you'd like to say howdy, maybe you've got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. If there's something going on in the hobby you'd like to chat a little bit about after the news portion, drop me a line. Well, in chat, you don't have to send me an email. So first out the gate in chat tonight is our very good friend of the show, the Madman. Yes, they are wishing everybody a happy Wednesday. Roger Perdome is with us, as is Jose Fernandez, and Travis Williams, and Kevin R. Smith is also in chat. I would take a guess, one of our other chat moderators alongside the Madman, Sarah D, might be hanging with us tonight. So we shall find out if she's lurking in the shadows in a few moments. Very nice, very nice. So let's jump on into the news, because on March 1st, you're going to see the release of the eagerly anticipated Redwood from Sit Down Games. And here's what I know. Redwood is a game of movement estimations and angle of view, where players have to take pictures of wild animals to compose the most beautiful panorama. During their turn, each player will have to choose between different movements and their angle of view, materialized by real plastic elements, to catch the animals in the picture without disturbing them. Collecting animals and decorative elements earn victory points. During the game, new conditions for earning points will appear. The game ends after 5 turns, and the players will be rewarded if they meet certain conditions to earn more points. Redwood is for 1 to 4 players, ages 10 and up, plays in around 45 to 60 minutes, and will carry an MSRP of $64.99 when it arrives early next month. I would like to get a closer look at this. This just has a really cool kind of visual appeal to it on the game table. I would think this is going to have some visual pop sitting there on your game table. In fact, now you see the entire game in front of you with the various different components. And it looks like it actually comes with miniatures of people taking photographs. I thought that was kind of wild. In fact, you're just about to see one in a moment, and it looks as if the miniature is supposed to have probably about, I don't know, 400 millimeter lens on that camera. For wildlife photography, a lot of times you need one of those massive lenses that are just huge. This looks very cool. This looks very, very interesting. And I know a lot of people have been eagerly anticipating its arrival. That is not too far off. It is coming March 1st. Sarah D is with us in chat. She's saying howdy to everybody. Kathy Evans is also hanging with the gang tonight. Let's move on to our next news piece because pre-orders have begun for the Fallout Factions Battle for Nuka World starter set from Modiphius Entertainment. Here's the scoop on the new skirmish level miniatures game. Hey there, new meat. You ready to start carving out your own slice of this here wasteland? Of course you are. Look at that bloodthirsty little mug. Well, you've come to the right place. Here in Nuka World, we got all the carnage a rated to be could ever need. Two gangs, the pack and the operators, are both chopping at the bit to take a big bite out of each other, just to prove who's the biggest threat. I ain't picking a side, but you better. So get in there, grab a gun, and let's see what happens. One way or the other, it's gonna be a good show. Welcome to Fallout Factions, the brand new Fallout miniature skirmish game from Modiphius and acclaimed game designer James Hewitt. In Fallout Factions, you lead your own gang of raiders through the ruins of Nuka World, cutting the competition out of your territory and watching your scavers, psychos, and more grow and change with every scrap. Containing everything you need to play the game, this starter set allows you to get a jump on the competition with enough miniatures to start building your own gang before taking the fight to a friend. The Fallout Factions Nuka World starter set contains an 80-page rulebook, one sprue of 10 hard plastic multi-part The Pack miniatures, plus their bases, one sprue of 10 hard plastic multi-part The Operators miniatures, plus bases, 3 sheets of punch-out terrain, 1 battle map and poster, 86 tokens, 12 dice, and a tape measure. This box set includes 20 32mm scale high-quality multi-part hard plastic miniatures with some optional parts as well and 30mm bases. This does require assembly, and these miniatures are supplied unpainted. You can pre-order the Nuka World starter set for an MSRP of approximately $109.99. The reason I say approximately is because, of course, it's the exchange rate. These sets are going to begin shipping in mid-April. And yes, the image you're looking at with the guy, what have I done? That's a little stage there, I would say. I am curious about this because I wonder what this means for Wasteland Warfare, because that is the Fallout miniatures game that has been around for a while now, and it's skirmish level for the most part. It's not as if you run out, 50 figures on a side in that game. Kind of curious. I wonder. Don't know. Do not know. Maybe we will actually have an opportunity to take a peek at this, because I am trying to bring more miniatures news and miniatures coverage to you. In fact, I got a couple of boxes today that I will be sharing a look at very shortly. So once again, this is going to start shipping in mid-April. You can pre-order now, and you can go right on over to the Modiphius Entertainment website to do so. Matthew Constantine, 245-trioxin, and Anthony Good are hanging with us tonight, as is Stephen from Roll for Combat. Yes, just in time, Stephen, because currently up on Backer Kit. Well, you couldn't have timed this any better now, could he have? From Roll for Combat is Battle Zoo Ancestries Classic Creatures for 5e and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And here's the latest on the project. Battle Zoo Ancestries Classic Creatures allows you to take on the role of 12 new ancestries with over 60 heritages based on classic creatures like demons, slimes, and mimics, and even stranger options like sentient dungeons and intelligent weapons. All right, so I'm playing as Mournblade. There you go. I am Mournblade. See, I always go for the less obvious sentient weapon, right? That's right. This new Backer Kit campaign brings a full print run and a host of brand new content to the extremely popular Battle Zoo Ancestries Year of Monsters. If the campaign succeeds, which it funded within like the first 45 minutes, all Year of Monsters backers will receive the new content as well. So keep that in mind. If you backed Year of Monsters, you're going to get the new content. The Year of Monsters was extremely popular, but the hardcover was only available to a small set of people from the Kickstarter and pre-order, and we weren't going to be able to print a full run, said Stephen Glicker, Roll for Combat's publisher. That name sounds familiar. When Backer Kit approached me, we decided to create a new campaign to bring these classic creatures to everyone. When we first conceived of this project, there were a few cool expansion ideas I had that had to be removed and left on the cutting room floor, added Mark Seifert, Roll for Combat's director of game design. But this campaign will allow me to add them in for everyone and create the true director's cut I'd always dreamed of writing. In addition to the hardcover book, Roll for Combat is offering a unique Mimic Dice Guardian. We talked about this last night. It is a $50 value. It's going to be provided to all backers for free during the first 48 hours of the campaign. You have approximately 12 hours to go, I believe, to score this Mimic. The Mimic Dice Guardian measures 4.4 by 4.4 by 4 inches and weighs approximately 1.5 pounds. It can easily hold multiple sets of dice. This unique dice holder is only available for free to all backers, once again, during the first 48 hours of the campaign. So this Backer Kit project did fund, like I said, I think it was within the first hour. If not, it was within like the first 3 hours. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover in your flavor of choice, 5e or Pathfinder 2nd Edition, including the PDF and digital assets, for a pledge of $69.99 through March 3rd. Once again, got about 12 hours left to be able to get that free Mimic Dice Guardian, which actually looks really cool. Maybe I can convince Stephen to send me one. Maybe. No, I doubt it. Highly doubt it. But I will say, since we have Stephen in chat with us, what is the delivery date, estimated delivery date on this project? Because I did not find it on Backer Kit. And for some strange reason, they don't tend to highlight when it's going to be arriving. And this is just a Backer Kit thing. I'm not saying it's a Roll for Combat thing, because there's other Backer Kit projects that I've taken a look at, and it's kind of like, all right, where are they hiding the estimated delivery? So Stephen says it is summer 2024, and they have to add that. They forgot to add that. Yeah, it's kind of important. A lot of people, like to know those kind of things. Summer of 2029. Sit back, relax. We'll get it to you. All right, so Steven's saying, yeah, sure, I can send you one of those mimics when they come in. All right, everybody's a witness. You are all witnesses to that chat. So there you go. Stephen points out the PDF and the Foundry virtual tabletop will be available in the next 2 months. Sweet. Very nice. Well, summer's not that far off for a print edition. So that's a pretty quick turnaround, seeing that this runs through March 3rd. So I would say that's a nice fast turnaround for a hardcover book. Sweet. And this does look pretty wild. In fact, I am actually using the image for the mimic as the thumbnail for tonight's show. So you will see that later on. You may have already noticed it earlier if you were popping on by the channel and saw the link. Kind of funny. Kind of funny. All right, on to the next news piece, because there is another crowdfunding project which is successfully funded, and that is the Blister Critters role-playing game from Gob Games and the Stillfleeet Studio. Here's what I know. Pick your favorite varmint, grab your dice, and role-play as a cartoon animal on a radiation-blasted Saturday morning show. Yeah, that sounds kind of bizarre. The humans are gone, just like the ozone layer, and the world they left behind is overflowing with danger. Enter Blister Critters, the new tabletop role-playing game by Gob Games and the Stillfleeet Studio. In this innovative and surreal game, you play as a small animal who can wield bizarre mutations called blisters, as well as physics-bending nonsense powers. These strange abilities, artfully developed within the grit system, will help you survive in a vast, cruel suburbia populated by fellow critters and their feral counterparts, beasts. Luckily, the humans have left behind a near infinite amount of stuff. Yes, that's game term. Are you sure it's not shit? Because remember, George Carlin always said, your stuff is stuff, but other people's stuff is shit. Don't know if you remember that. As you arm yourself with, trade, or hack apart and reassemble that stuff using Blister Critters' simple crafting rules. Just watch out for self-aware blistered stuff, aka bliffs. If you stepped into the world of Ren and Stimpy or SpongeBob, or if you enjoyed Malsrita, swear to God, it actually says Malsrita, or Wander Home, but wanted to set your game in Anytown, USA, or in Gamma World, this is the game for you. Either explore, thrive, and die as a critter, or live long enough to see yourself become a beast. There is a 2-minute long crowdfunding video. Let's just say the host is pretty enthusiastic and leave it at that. But let's give that a peek.
Hi, I'm Anthony Grasso of Gob Games, and I'm working together with the Stillfleeet Studio to bring you Blister Critters! Now you might be asking, what is Blister Critters? Blister Critters is the world's greatest cartoon animal TTRPG! Have you ever wanted to play a role-playing game set in a Saturday morning cartoon where the players are mutated animals fighting off violent beasts and exploring a humanless suburbia? Oh, awesome, great! It's all in there! Back us today. Let's take a look. Now, the Blister Critters box set includes the following. A 100-page, full-color, professionally designed rulebook packed with everything that producers and critters will need to play an awesome season.
Wow.
a beautiful set of Blister Critters themed dice. Yeah, you do need more dice! Of course you need more dice! A huge double-sided poster full of all the useful and random stuff those pesky humans left behind. A blister booster pack of 48 cards with artwork and stats for the many critters and beasts you'll encounter. And because we would never do the bare minimum, we plan to pack this here box with the great book of ad-libs, 2 amazing zines, and even more cards. But we can't do it without your support, audience. So turn the dial to the Critter channel, reserve the box set, and tell everybody you know about Blister Critters!
As I said, that host was rather enthusiastic. You can reserve a copy of the Blister Critters Rulebook, PDF, and stretch goals for a $20 pledge, or you can grab just the PDF alone for a $15 pledge through March 7th. Expected delivery of the physical book is next January, and the PDF should be available this September. This is also fully funded. So this funded within its first day on Kickstarter. Looks kind of bizarre, kind of wild. Sort of. We've talked about Gamma World and kind of the gonzo-ness of Gamma World in the past. So Matthew Constantine says, tuned by way of Mutant Crawl Classics. But I would say this is probably a very rules-light system. I think this is, off the top of my head, I thought I saw that this has, I think, 4 attributes, and it's got kind of 4 types of characters. But I like the art style. Art style looks pretty nice. So let's say 245 tracks. It says, I both hated that and enjoyed it. I would, like I said, the host was unique. There you go. Enthusiastic and unique. Kevin King and Royce are with us tonight. Royce is asking if I've done away with War Game Wednesdays. Well, since I no longer do first looks or reviews on the live show, I haven't gotten away from War Game Wednesdays, because you will find, starting next week, you will see wargaming videos. So first looks and reviews will pop on Wednesdays. So there will still be War Game Wednesdays, just not on the live show. So War Game Wednesdays are different. But then again, a lot of times, if there's a wargaming news piece that I run across, then I tend to share those on Wednesday. There really wasn't anything new that I ran across, although I'll be very honest, I didn't take a peek at like GMT games today. So maybe there is some new stuff cooking on GMT. I did just share my review for the Plum Island Horror, although it's not truly a war game. It is from GMT Games. All right, let's move on to the final news piece, because the Original Champions superhero role-playing game is the subject of a new bundle of holding, and I've got the deets on the deal. Be a Hero. This revived November 2018 Early Champions bundle once again presents nearly 3 dozen tabletop role-playing game PDFs featuring the groundbreaking early rules, supplements, and adventures for Champions, the super role-playing game from Hero Games. This giant revival, one of 2 now in progress, I will talk about the other one on tomorrow's show, presents every book for the first, second, and third editions of Champions. You heard that right. For just $14.95, you get all 13 titles in this revived offer's phenomenal core collection, with a retail value of $73.50 as DRM-free PDFs, including the Champions Core Rulebook in its first, second, and third editions, plus the introductory adventure Viper's Nest and the original Rose's Combat map. The jam-packed rules expansions Champions 2 First Edition, Champions 3 Second Edition, or I should say Champions 2 Second Edition, and Champions 3. No less than 5 collections in the popular Enemies series, the Gadgets Book of Weaponry and Equipment, and the Game Master screens for the First Edition and Third Edition. The latter includes the insert booklet with the Third Edition version of the famous Champion scenario, The Island of Dr. Destroyer. And if you pay more than the current threshold price of $28.67, you'll level up and also get this Revival's entire bonus collection with 14 more titles worth an additional $110. 3 famous genre source books, Strike Force and Super Agents, and The Golden Age of Champions, 5 organization books, Primus and Demon, The Blood and Dr. McQuark, The Circle and Meat, Clown, and Red Doom. Early adventures for First and Second Edition, Deathstroke, Escape from Stronghold, and the Great Supervillain Contest. Adventures for Third Edition, Atlas Unleashed, The Coriolis Effect, Neutral Ground, Scourge from the Deep, Target, Hero to Serve and Protect, Voice of Doom, and Wrath of the Seven Horsemen. There's even Auto Duel Champions, the licensed supplement from Steve Jackson Games that combine Champions and Car Wars. These savings will run through February 26th, and 10% of your payment after gateway fees will be donated to the Diana Jones Award Emerging Designer Program. So there you have it. I picked up Champions back in the day. I had First Edition. I want to say I had the First Edition and Third Edition. The Second Edition cover doesn't necessarily ring a bell when I take a peek at it. But yes, I remember having Champions. We had Villains and Vigilantes. Trying to think if there were any other superhero rules that we picked up. I never had Marvel, strangely enough. I did not have the Marvel superhero role-playing game from TSR. So I never played with Phase Rip. In fact, I got to be honest, I think we messed around with Villains and Vigilantes more than we did Champions. But interestingly enough, the hero system hasn't changed tremendously over the years. It's still pretty similar to the original Champions. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild. Matthew Constantine says, in the late 80s and 90s, they bounced off of champions like Bart Simpson on Pixie Sticks. Could never wrap their head around it. Lord Cos 2000 is with us tonight. Kim King says, been thinking of adapting Marvel's Cataclysm of Kang to it. Not a fan of the new Marvel system. I had considered picking that up, the core book. But then I thought to myself, you know, that playtest, because I bought it. Nobody sent me that. That playtest was a mess. It was a god-awful mess. Wrong stat blocks. And yeah, it was a disaster. And the game system itself, I was not overly enthusiastic for. Maybe it got better. Maybe they cleaned it up. I mean, I know it is if I remember correctly, I think it's a Matt Forbeck design. So there's that. Kathy Evans says they've played the Marvel game. Well, I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, because once again, you know what? I think I owned it. I think I owned the first one, the first box set that came out. But I don't think I ever poked around in it much. When I was in high school and early, college, I'd blow money on games all the time. I've already talked about how I'd pick up like Deadlands. I get all the Deadlands stuff that came out. was picking up all the Vampire the Masquerade stuff. Never ran them. See, I enjoyed reading them. I enjoyed the meta plots that they had. But I was running Call of Cthulhu. And funny enough, I really never cribbed anything from them. So I just liked reading role-playing game books. I don't know what to tell you. But I seem to remember having, wasn't it like a yellow box? Was that like the basic version? Anyway, what I was going to say is, I thought, if I remember correctly, wasn't there sort of a basic Marvel superheroes? And that was sort of, but then there was like an advanced version of it that came out, also in a box set, that was actually much better. I know I ran across something a couple of years ago, might have been an article that I saw online, and it was talking about Phase Rip. I couldn't believe how much content actually had come out from TSR for the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. It was this huge list. I was like, really? I didn't know that. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. Kathy Evans said they enjoyed the Marvel game. Man says, surprise! I've been looking through my copy of Savage World Super's Companion. Bet you never would have guessed. I would have never thought the Madman would be checking out something for, what is the game called? Savage Worlds? Kind of rings a bell. In fact, I just reviewed the Deadlands Companion for it. I shared that video yesterday. No extra videos today. Although I do have some in the can. I do have some that have to be edited. And I have plenty of stuff to shoot video of. So have no fear about that. Anywho, the dispatch will continue in just a few moments. Now, actually, you know what? Before I forget, I should point out the Gaming Gang, thus the dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf websites. Although I really didn't mention them in any of the news pieces today, that's why it didn't pop into my head to say this. But if you are going to visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG, maybe you're going to take a look at Marvel's Superheroes role-playing game from TSR, which I believe you can get in PDF. I think it is on Drive-Thru RPG. If not, it's probably over on Dungeon Masters Guild. But if you are going to visit any of those One Bookshelf sites, say also like Storyteller's Vault, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always swing on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation, such as the Madman and Marius Smith recently did. And I will say, it was not a small donation that the Madman made. Thank you very kindly. So I know there are quite a few of you out there who utilize the banner ads and or stop by paypal.me. Thank you very kindly. It is vastly, vastly appreciated. Okay, now the dispatch will continue in a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
my mother for Valentine's Day? What is it? It's a love bug. Ding, ding, ding. Cute. Yeah, and when you open it up, it's filled with dozens of Tootsie Roll midgies. That's great. Mothers like Tootsie Rolls. And when she's finished all the Tootsie Rolls, she can use it as a wall decoration. Or collect them and make a mobile. Hey, there's only one Tootsie Roll left for your mother. Don't worry. I think she's giving me a love bug for Valentine's Day, too.
12 different love bugs filled with Tootsie Rolls. Now at stores everywhere.
It's Woolworth's Stereo Spectacular 71, a fantastic once-a-year sale of albums, LPs, tapes, everything in stereo, unbelievably low priced. Woolworth's Stereo Spectacular has top stereo LPs, the biggest hits just off the charts for only $1.57. Famous labels, favorite stars, Herb Alpert, Petula Clark, The Association, Canned Heat, many more for only $1.57. And another fabulous group of LPs on sale for just 87 cents. Jack Jones, The Beach Boys, Guess Who, and more. And for children, the original cast album of Sesame Street, only 87 cents. Woolworth Stereo Spectacular has big savings on 8-track stereo cartridges. Dionne Warwick, Lou Rawls, Glenn Campbell, Blind Faith, many more for only $2.99. Supplies are limited, so hurry over and save during Woolworth Stereo Spectacular 71.
Thank you for shopping, Woolworth. It's the fun place to shop.
Got your parachute?
I forgot it.
How about the Wilkins coffee?
I forgot that too.
You'll never forget this.
This is going to be the kissingest Valentine's Day ever, because Scoop Mouthwash is going to give away millions of free samples and coupons to make this a Valentine's Day to remember. You see, Scoop, first thing in the morning, makes your breath feel fresher for hours. And after Valentine's Day, keep buying Scoop. Who says the kissing has to end on Valentine's Day? Scoop. Once in the morning does.
Yes, 8-track. 8-track tapes. I remember those as well. Some folks are talking about them in chat. Yes, we had an 8-track player in the house and the car. And I remember we had a Queen 8-track. Is it Night at the Opera? I'm trying to remember. Is it Night at the Opera that's got Bohemian Rhapsody on it? I think it is. I don't think it's Day at the Races. I think it's Night at the Opera. And I remember we had that. We also had Hotel California. And the thing that always cracked me up, and if you had an 8-track tape player, you'll remember this. You'd be listening and you'd get to a point. It might be in the middle of a song. And it would change tracks and start playing. So it'd be like in the middle of a tune, it's like, welcome to the... Hotel California. And you wouldn't think really anything of it. I'd be like, no. Kevin R. Smith said, oh my God, Woolworths and 8-track tapes. Now that's ancient nostalgia. Kevin King says they had some Star Wars disco thing on 8-track. Didn't get it at Woolworths though. Jack Hanks has joined us in chat. Good to see you, Jack. So my mom had one of those. Kevin R. Smith says, yes, their mom had some of those when they were a kid. Matthew Constantine said, 8-track player in the car, the only way to listen to the Doors. Kevin R. Smith says she used to play the Statler Brothers' greatest hits in the car all the time. And yes, those program switches. Bandman says, I remember those 8-tracks. I had one in a portable stereo. I had a friend who had one of those. Must have had about 300 8-tracks at one point. Hated it when it switched tracks in the middle of a song. Yeah, that was pretty lame. It was pretty damn lame. Yes, that was a brand spanking new brief intermission. I threw that together today. But let's get some Valentine's Day stuff in there. And then I ran across that Woolworth ad. I was like, oh, I got to toss that in there too. Funny enough, I think there still are a few Woolworths floating around. There is one in Bakersfield, California, or at least it was still in Bakersfield 4 years ago, and it had a lunch counter. And supposedly it was the last remaining lunch counter in a Woolworths. Find it on YouTube. I don't know if it's still there or not, because I think it was a news report. It was like 3 minutes long. I was like, oh my God, I remember those. Yep, as a little kid, going there. My mom would get a grilled cheese sandwich and a Coke. And strangely enough, I have never been a big, well, I like cheese on pizzas. There's certain things that I like cheese on, but I'm not a real big cheese fan. Not a huge American cheese fan. So to me, I find like grilled cheese sandwiches to be gross. I know, what am I, a communist? So, anywho, so I guess Kevin R. Smith's going to be at Gen Con this year. Looks like they're going to be running games as well in the, I think it's the, isn't it like the new games or something like that? Isn't that the room that you run stuff in, Kevin? Kind of like an intro for publishers and stuff. For some reason, I thought I remembered that. So Madman's also planning on going to Gen Con. I will be there with Elliot Miller. I can't say I'll have bells on, seeing I never wear bells, but I will be there. So we got a little bit of time. Kevin King asks, are Cubs fans allowed to be cheese snobs? Yeah, I think so. Travis Williams says, so what you're saying is cheese can kick rocks? Not necessarily. I mean, there's some things that I like cheese, like pizzas, obviously, nachos, stuff like that. But it's not a huge fan. And cheese really isn't good for you if you have a lot of it. So it's not good for the old ticker. Matthew Constantine says, I love cheese, but I don't like American cheese. Only thing worse is government cheese. I had that once. At somebody's house, and it was gross. Independent Game Developers Network. It is an association of small game publishers. That is the room that Kevin R. Smith runs games at Gen Con. Anyway, I was going to say, we got a little time tonight. So one thing I wanted to mention is we got to get the number of views up on these videos. Really, really got to get them up. Not a ton, but a bit. Because as I had pointed out before, if I can't pull in at least 300 views on average for the live show, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be doing the live show. Just saying. So we're right. Well, we started off like cracking 400 on the first few of the new format where there's no first look or anything like that. And then kind of settled into around 300. So I think last night's show hasn't cracked 300 yet. Yeah, just floating it out there. Yeah, spread the word a little bit, Anyway, So the discussion was superhero role-playing games. We can kind of talk about those a little bit. I have to tell you what I think, and I don't know how many of you out there who are hanging out in chat, or if you're watching this after the fact, by all means, leave a comment, let me know. How many of you out there feel that superhero role-playing games are probably one of the most difficult role-playing games to game master? I sort of have that feeling. I think superhero role-playing games as a whole are kind of difficult to come up with. Now, we had already heard from the Madman talking about they're taking a peek at the Super's companion for Savage Worlds. I would take a wild guess that their approach to the superpowers are probably similar to the approach that they took for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds with magic, where you're looking at kind of what is the effect? I mean, what, at its heart, what is this, right? So something would be a blast power, but the actual details of it could vary from character to character. But in the end, what it's creating is some sort of a blast. So you could have Cyclops with his vision, with his, beams. But you could also have, it's the mutant Cyclops? Try to remember. Oh, Banshee. Oh, there's a great example. Banshee. And the sonic waves. It's effectively a blast. So I'm curious if that's how Savage Worlds approaches it. The Madman, I'm sure, can answer that for us. But I don't know. I don't know. I think superhero role-playing games are kind of tough because it's sort of along the lines of how do you kind of level characters and things like that? Or, I get it. You could earn experience, which can increase the power of your abilities, and maybe you can gain new abilities, but I don't know, it just feels a little off to me. But once again, as I mentioned, I kind of understand the gist of phase rip. Not that, like I said, I never really delved into the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game from TSR very deeply, but I do understand the concept of it, where it's actually more narrative. Do you even roll dice? Do you roll dice in phase rip? Because I thought it's like you have all these various different levels of powers, and just actually all attributes have different levels. I know. Madman says, I'm seriously looking into the Savage Worlds necessary evil setting. The hero's been defeated by aliens, leaving only the supervillains that the characters play. Yeah, I've heard of that. Kevin King says, systems they dislike the most to run were Amber RPG, isn't that diceless? And Rollmaster. Oh, I couldn't even imagine trying to run Rollmaster. And yes, I understand. Middle-earth role-playing was built on Rollmaster. I get it. But it was also really trimmed down. The folks over at Iron Crown Enterprises, isn't that it? Isn't that ICE? Had sent me, this is a few years ago, they had sent me a PDF of the new Rollmaster, the new edition of Rollmaster. And I peeked at it and I was like, no. No. And when we were kids, well, teenagers, we picked up Arms Law, Claw Law, Spell Law. We had all of those. I had it, my friend Scott had it, and actually had it in a binder In fact, if I remember correctly, I punched holes in it so I could put it in a binder because I don't think it was made with the 3 holes in it to put them in a binder. And the concept of it was very cool with critical hits and all these different things, because originally it was just supposed to be kind of an add-on to Dungeons and Dragons, Arms Law, Claw Law, stuff like that. It was supposed to be to make your combat more vibrant, I guess. And then it just kind of branched into its own thing with character law. Wasn't that the rules for character creation and sort of their action resolution? But all in all, I just always thought that Rolemaster was just kind of a mess. I would not enjoy running that. So I can certainly see where Kevin King is coming from. So Matthew Constantine says, I could see running low-level superheroes, sort of pulp heroes, such as like Batman or the Shadow. Once you get into X-Men or DC Gods, yeah, see, and to me, I would think Batman and the Shadow, especially the Shadow, would be more along the lines of pulp. So even if you went with like Doc Savage, the Spider was another pulp hero, although I don't recall the Spider actually having any mystical powers or supernatural powers or anything like that. They were sort of a two-fisted, two-gun sort of character. Tim Truman, those of you who recall the art from the original Vampire the Masquerade, Tim Truman did a series, probably late 80s, of kind of prestige format comics of the Spider. And I picked them up. It was like a 4-part series. Artwork was just awesome. Pretty decent story too. And then in these issues, they actually had kind of the background of that pulp hero. I thought it was pretty cool. Matthew Constantine says, I think the Spider was just very smart and a jerk. Madman says, Savage Worlds has multiple powers characters can choose from. There are variations, but they work similarly to the magic powers from the core book, if they recall correctly. Kathy Evans says, they aren't easy to run sometimes. Some players come up with interesting ideas for characters. We have 2 people running adventures in the same system. So Kathy pointed out that they are playing, what was that? Paragons and Prowlers or something like that. Prowlers and Paragons. Which I think is, I believe, a rules light superhero role-playing game from some little publisher. I can't even think of the publisher. But I mean, it's someone that I don't think I've ever like shared a news piece of. Kevin R. Smith says, I picked up the new core Rolemaster book way back when it was realism. Huzzah! Now it's like RPG accounting. Boo. Madman says they haven't actually played a Supers campaign for Savage Worlds in several years. What they recall, it was fairly easy to run. Matthew says, had some friends who were into Rolemaster, but that was pretty much a non-starter for them. Madman also points out, Savage Worlds has multiple pre-con supervillains, so you can easily drop them into the game. So pre-gens. Yeah. Like I said, I just kind of have the impression, because having read plenty of superhero role-playing game core rule books and adventures and things like that, it just strikes me as not being easy to game master. Probably as a player, it's no big deal, no big issue. But I think as a game master, probably relatively difficult, especially when you start getting into these super, like, ultimate level kind of heroes like the Hulk. Sort of, it's like, okay, well, who's stronger? Ben Grimm or the Hulk? I was never a big Hulk fan. I mean, I don't mind the Hulk. He's fine. But I'm always, give me the Thing any day. It's clobbering time. Then again, I also should point out I've never been an Iron Man fan either. I'm a Captain America fan. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, even back as a kid, you kind of had the impression where it was like, well, you're either Team Iron Man or you're Team Cap. I was Team Cap. Kathy Evans says the role-playing game was from a Kickstarter their friend has supported. There you go. Very nice. Very cool. All righty. So I should show you what showed up today. As I had mentioned, I had a couple of packages coming from Steamforged Games, and I did receive Medici, which I will be shooting a video of in the very near future. But I also got a couple of epic encounters. So this is Savannah of the Knolls. Isn't that it? Oh, Savannah of the Knoll, which I believe has 18 minis in it. And these epic encounters tend to have 5e D&D encounters and tokens and maps for you to play that encounter out on. But I think the big selling point are the miniatures. So we've got this. And then normally what we see is the epic encounters kind of have two parts to them almost. One is standard size, probably about 32 millimeter miniatures, which we were talking about the Fallout factions earlier. I remember with Fallout Wasteland Warfare, I could have swore those miniatures were like 28 millimeter. They seemed kind of small. So I'm wondering if that's one of the things with the Fallout factions that's going to be different. Maybe the miniatures will be a little larger. Don't know. I'm not sure. So anyway, so this was one of them. And then what we tend to see with the epic encounters is the other release will be some large scale miniature. And that is the case here. Rage of the Knoll War Seeker. And it is looking pretty big. So I will be sharing first look videos of these. I will probably shoot them this weekend. And I also, like I said, I also got Medici, but it's upstairs. I didn't run it downstairs here. Matthew Constantine says, I imagine it'd be like trying to run a Lensman game. Okay, everyone, he's launched a planet at you. Strangely enough, I read the first Lensman book. I mean, it was all right, but it was really that 50s kind of science fiction. And like I said, it was okay. It wasn't the worst. So I don't know. I don't know what I remember I saw an anime that was based on the Lensman. This is years and years ago. I was probably in my 20s. And that's what led me to try to find isn't it Doc E.E. or it's E.E. Doc Smith? Isn't that the author of Lensman? For some reason that name is popping in my head. And I saw the anime. I thought, the anime was all right. And I thought, I should track these books down. And I remember going to a used bookstore that had decent science fiction section. And they only had the first book. So I picked it up and I was like, Matthew says, I'd been looking forward to reading the Lensman books for years. Finally did a couple of years ago and I hated it. All right. I wouldn't say I hated it, but I was sort of like, what were people, what was the big deal here? I mean, yeah, okay, so the concept, sort of, okay? So to me, the Lensman, and now I don't know if this is where the idea for Green Lantern came from, the Lantern Corps. Very similar to the Lensman. Kevin R. Smith says, I think I've got some Lensman stuff around somewhere, but I haven't read it. They wanted to because apparently it was an influence on Babylon 5. Huh, that's interesting. Chris Lundgren is with us in chat. Good to see you, Chris. Matthew Constantine says, it felt like Smith was having an arms race with himself, seeing how stupidly overpowered it could be. And having not read, because isn't it like 4 books make up the series? And I believe there was a decent amount of time between the books. So Smith didn't write them all like one after another, as far as I understand. I could be wrong, but so I thought from like the first to the second book, suddenly in the second book, the Lensmen have like all these powers. They're like really super powered. But not so much in the first book. The first book's more kind of how the Lensmen are formed. It's been so long since I read it. But I remember reading it and thinking, funny enough, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but the actor Paul Giamatti, who seems like he would be such an interesting person to shoot the shit with. He has a podcast that kind of delves into weird kind of like supernatural stuff. Not every episode, but a lot of them. Anyway, he is a huge science fiction fan and like classic science fiction. And he talks about it, how he reads a lot of bad science fiction. And it's, so bad it's good sort of thing. Kevin King says, new wave science fiction in the late 60s changed how authors approach science fiction. Having grown up on that, the earlier books seem a bit dry. Oh, yeah. Bone dry, that is for certain. Very, very little characterization. Very little character development either. Matthew says they read a lot of science fiction from the first half of the century, but Smith just didn't do it for him at all. Clark Ashton Smith, surprisingly, a lot of his work still holds up fairly well. There is quite a bit of Clark Ashton Smith's work that, well, I've not read, I have listened to audiobooks. So there is that. But some of it holds up pretty decently, considering that, it was written in the 30s. So late 20s, early 30s. And strangely enough, at least I always thought this was strange. After Robert E. Howard committed suicide and H.P. Lovecraft died from cancer, Smith completely dropped writing any sort of weird fiction, fantasy, science fiction, anything like that. And if I remember correctly, I think he became a poet. That the loss of Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft, who he corresponded with a lot. In fact, I could have swore, if I remember right, he met Robert E. Howard in the small Texas town that Howard lived in. I think he went there to meet him once. But yeah, after both of them passed away, that was it. He completely dropped fiction. And like I said, I think he mainly focused on poetry. Matthew says, love Clark Ashton Smith, him and C.L. Moore. I have not read any C.L. Moore. I prefer them both to Lovecraft. I dig later Lovecraft. I mean, even though I run Call of Cthulhu and have for decades, that doesn't mean I love all of his work. There's some of it that's pretty clunky, especially early stuff. It's, oh gosh, what is the name of it? It's a documentary. Neil Gaiman's in it. So is Peter Straub. I'm trying to remember the one British author who does a lot of horror, and he started out kind of writing mythos stuff. But there are a lot of authors, duh. There are a lot of authors in this documentary, and it's all about Lovecraft. And it's actually really good. It's really, really good. And it is kind of funny. They do talk about, the language, the gibbous moon, stuff like that. In fact, Neil Gaiman recites a line from, I think, might be Shadow over Innsmouth. And he kind of recites this line, and he says, all it means is it was a full moon. Chris Lundgren says, the only fantasy series I hated that I wanted to like was the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. I read those. 10 high fantasy novels written by American author Stephen R. Donaldson. Depressing anti-hero. I read the first 6, and that was a series I read as they were coming out. And very, very different. Very, very different. And yes, Thomas Covenant is a true anti-hero, but pretty well done. Now, I had heard, I haven't read them, but I had heard, I think the last 2 books that Donaldson wrote were pretty bad. Most people did not like them much. But the reality is, I think after the first 3 books, I think that was sort of the highlight. And then he rolled out another trilogy that he added a new major character to. That was decent. But yeah, the Thomas Covenant books are, you got to be a certain type of reader, I think, to get into that. But the land that he concocts, pretty cool setting. Isn't it Lord Bane? No, Lord Fowl. Isn't that the villain, the big baddie? Matthew Constantine says, for C.L. Moore, I'd recommend her Northwest Smith stories. See, now I've heard of that. It's like Lovecraft writes Han Solo, but a world where sex exists. Nice. Very nice. All righty. So that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It will not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming first look at Starfighter. Isn't it I always want to say the Scoured Stars, but it is Scoured Stars from Paizo Inc. This collects the 12-part Starfighter Society adventure into one volume, and it's kind of built out as well. It's not just those monthly releases for the organized play. So stay tuned. I will have my video of this probably tomorrow. You'll be able to check it out. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you. It is much appreciated because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company too. But of course, a lot of you out there, I know you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. I will be back tomorrow. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and here's hoping all of you out there get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.